Greetings everyone, Francis Fernando here. So, how to invest in real estate for beginners? How does a beginner get into the real estate market? So I remember years and years ago when I graduated from university. Shortly after I graduated, I got a job very quickly as an engineer. So I was pretty lucky. Went to engineering school and the economy was just taking off at the time. So I was able to get a job fairly rapidly. And because I got a job as an engineer, I was able to make fairly decent money. And I've always been sort of a low debt saver type individual. Although as much as I was a saver, I was also always had this thought in my mind that I want to create wealth and I want to create assets. Anyhow, what I decided to do was, quickly save up. I had saved up about $5,000 about, a few months into my work. And I needed a car at the time. And I still recall a bunch of my friends, reaching out to me saying, "Oh, Francis, you've got a good job. You're an engineer. You should buy a BMW," right? And as tempting as it was with the peer pressure, I evaluated both and I was like, all right, well, if I put the $5,000 I had saved up, if I put $5,000 down towards the BMW, my payment would be about $400 for 60 months, right? So I could have that. It's a shiny new car. It would make me look cool and all that. But right around the same time that I was evaluating this, I was also reading a book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which at the time, I just liked the name of it. Rich Dad, Poor Dad, thought it was a pretty cool name. The author is Robert Kiyosaki. Fast forward 20, almost 22 years, I realize today that Rich Dad, Poor Dad is sort of a staple book for any real estate investor. So it's a shout out to anyone looking at, adding a list of books. Definitely Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Another book, which we'll talk about the authors later, is Job plus Real Estate equals Wealth. Job plus Real Estate equals Wealth. So anyway, I was reading that book at the same time and I thought to myself, wow, you know what? I've always had this thought of creating assets greater than liabilities in my life. And I thought instead of putting this down towards a car, I'm going to put this down towards purchasing a condo. And so that's what I ended up doing. I evaluated the two options. I put the money down towards a condo. Now, I want to go back and do sort of an introspective and look back because this is about almost 22 years ago. Let's take a look back and see, had I put that same $5,000 into the BMW, the two scenarios, all right? So scenario one is that I would have put that money into the BMW, right? This would have been a 1997 brand new BMW. Again, I would have put $5,000 down. I would have likely had a $400 a month payment towards this car for 60 months. And I did the quick math. That would have been north of $30,000 that I would have spent on a car. Now, again, this is 1997. Let's fast forward to today and let's take a look at where that car would be today and what the value of that car would be. First of all, quite likely, with the amount of mileage that I do, that car would be in the scrapyard. Likely worth zero. Now, let's give it the benefit of the doubt. Let's say I took care of it and it's got 300,000 miles or 400,000 miles. Maybe it would be worth about 2,000 or so. Maybe. The point of the matter is I invested it. I took that 5,000, I put it in towards a property. I had the opportunity to live in that property, and then I rented that property, and fast forward, I actually paid that property off. So I really have no mortgage on that. I still own it today, and that property today delivers me $1,000 a month in rent, right? Now, here's a bonus. The bonus is that the property over these 22 plus years has 5x'd in value. So not only do I have the value, I paid it off, and in fact, when I paid it off, the true beauty with owning real estate, income producing real estate, is that my tenant's rent technically paid it off. So property's paid off, I got to live in it, it's still my asset today. And the true beauty is this. If I really wanted a BMW, and if I needed a BMW, I could have the property purchase me a BMW as opposed to me purchasing a BMW. So that is the value of assets. Assets greater than liabilities, my friends. So with that, as I reel the tape back and I look and I'm sitting here, the purpose of this video is what would you do as a first-time real estate investor? How to invest in real estate for beginners. So what would you do? As I look back and for those of you watching this video, you're likely on this video because you want to create wealth or create a legacy. Legacy and an empire that you can pass down from generation to generation. So pass it down from you to your families, to your kids, if you have kids, but you pass generational wealth down. Real estate is probably one of the best avenues for passing down generational wealth. You, similarly to me, you want to create assets greater than liabilities. You likely are, have a job and you want to look back and say, hey, I don't want to work for 20, 30 years and have nothing to show for it. I'd like to have some form of assets should the unfortunate time come where I either get laid off or I lose my job or I retire. I want to have some of these assets built up so that I could then get a continuous stream of income. Just like this property is producing for me every single month. I get a $1,000 check in the mail, no questions asked. And not to mention the fact that it's 5x in value and it's just sitting there at any time that I need to tap into those funds or I need to sell it, I have that option and ability to do that. So here are, if these are of interest to you, here are 3 quick steps that I put together. Again, I reeled the tape back and I said, sort of in a high level, what should I do or what advice would I give? Number 1, education. Make sure that you are educating yourself and reading and learning all about real estate. Surround yourself with the right people. Because I'll tell you, had I not been reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad at the time that I was at that crossroad decision, I would have likely got tempted and purchased the BMW. It would have been a critical, life-changing moment for me. So get all the information that you can. Again, I gave you 2 books. The first book is Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Job plus real estate equals wealth. That's actually, I am the author of that book. Job plus real estate equals wealth. So education is number 1. Number 2 is dabble a little bit in real estate. Here's what I mean by that. Dabble a little bit in real estate. Here's what I mean. Surround yourself with the right people. There's a thing called RIAs, Real Estate Investment Associations. And real estate investment associations are all across the globe. In your city, if you just Google, Buffalo, New York, REIA, or wherever you live in the globe, just type that in and quite likely you're going to find a group either physically present or local to your city, or it would be an online group. I would really recommend that you meet up with people and start interfacing with people. And when I say dabble, I say find someone who is doing a real estate transaction that you're interested in doing. So for example, if someone is buying a 6-unit apartment building or a small multifamily apartment building, make friends with them and ask them, hey, can I shadow you during this transaction? I want to see how you search for properties. I want to and make sure that the person is successful, obviously. And also you've educated yourself so you sort of know the process from a academic perspective. Now you're taking that academic perspective and putting it into real life. So you would have the smarts, even if the person that you're shadowing doesn't have exactly the smarts. But clearly the point of the matter here is that you want to shadow someone who's got the smarts and knows what they're doing. So you start evaluating how they're doing, sort of go through the entire transaction from purchase to the acquisition to the stabilization of the asset if that's the need. And then look at the numbers, evaluate the numbers, look at what kind of profits they're getting, and maybe ask them if you could, volunteer your services even for a year. A year would give you a pretty good snapshot of what goes wrong, what kind of, issues that could go wrong in the property to make it not profitable or profitable. And you sort of write down your best practices. So that's dabbling in real estate. And then the third step is just do it. Do the transaction that you feel you're capable of doing, that, very similar to the transaction that you shadowed. Do your own transaction and just go for it. I mean, it's as simple as that. Just, those 3 steps. Educate yourself, shadow someone, and just take that leap of faith and do it. You just need that confidence to be able to do it. So with that, I want to jump into our rapid fire questions, which is, 3 questions to sort of sum this up and make this an effective, well-rounded topic so that you understand as a first-time real estate investor, how do you do it right? So question number 1. What are your favorite books as it pertains to real estate and entrepreneurship? So here are my 3 books. Number 1, you know it, I've said it already, Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. So important, such a great book. I've actually given one to my teenage son. Robert Kiyosaki has the teenage version of it, so I'm getting the kids going on that early. Second book is Job Plus Real Estate Equals Wealth. Francis Fernando is the author, so Francis Fernando authored that book. I authored that book with one purpose in mind. I was a property manager for 15 years and I evaluated all my clients that were doing super successful and my clients that were doing not so super successful, that made mistakes. And I took the best practices and I made it a realistic guide on investing in real estate. So it is a soup to nuts, from the basics. How do you develop the right mindset, to how do you purchase, how do you evaluate properties, how do you determine what's profitable, what's not profitable, what are the pitfalls, how do you manage property managers, soup to nuts. How do you get into real estate investing? The title of the book, Job Plus Real Estate Equals Wealth. And my third book it's an entrepreneurship book, The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss. Love that book. Such a great book for efficiencies and introducing you into how to really maximize your life and minimize your time, doing busy work. Question number 2. Should I buy big or should I buy small as my first real estate investment? I hate it when people answer a question like this. Well, it depends. I hate that answer because there's no clarity in that answer. So my answer to that is, it depends. But I'm going to qualify it. It depends on your ability and your capability and sort of where you are, your means and your whereabouts. In other words, if you have the means and if you have the financial ability to go large, I would be remiss in telling you to go small. So if you have the financial capability, factoring in that you may have a family, you may have kids, you may have other a home and other mortgage obligations and other obligations, financial obligations, factoring that, if you have the financial capability beyond that, then by all means, shadow, like I said in step number 2, shadow a transaction that is large. Make sure that you're shadowing a large transaction. And if you want to go large, go for it. Now, if you don't have the ability to do that, and you don't have the purchasing power, and you don't have the lasting power, and you don't want to put your family at risk, then go small and shadow a small transaction. Understand how a small transaction works and go for the small transaction. So it really depends on your ability and your risk tolerance. Question number 3, what is the one piece of advice you would give about real estate investing? Here's what I would give as real estate, one piece of advice that I give to many, many people. It is when you buy real estate as an investment, not as a property to live in, not as a home, but as an investment, you want to work on taking that emotional decision from here up to here. It has to become an intellectual decision. So the way you can make it an intellectual decision is to really learn the ABCs of real estate, the ABCs and the 1, 2, 3s of real estate, and evaluate it. I'm going to speak a little bit in advance here. Evaluate the property using what's called a pro forma. Feel free to connect with me. Drop me a note if you want to know what a pro forma is. If you want a copy of a pro forma, I will gladly share one with you. A pro forma is basically a tool, and I've created my own personalized tool in order to evaluate what's a good property and what's not a good property from a profitable standpoint. So that is the one piece of advice I would give you. Make that emotional decision an intellectual decision. I trust that this video was of value to you, and if you are a first-time real estate investor, please feel free to share this, connect with me, and happy investing, and make that leap of faith and begin creating assets greater than liabilities in your life. Take care.